Welcome to the Resilient Mindset Podcast, an exciting new podcast by Resilience Queen, Justine Martin. Justine is the owner and founder of the Resilient Mindset, a division of the Justine Martin Corporation. Justine draws on her years of experience and knowledge consulting with clients to develop and sustain a positive mindset. Focused on igniting your passion, purpose and power, follow the Resilience Queen each week as she delves into the mind of her guests, exploring fascinating stories and inspiring journeys.
Dr. Debi Silber is the founder of the PBT Betrayal Transformation Institute and is a holistic psychologist, a health, mindset and personal development expert, the author of Trust Again, the Rebuild Roadmap, and is a two-time #1 international best-selling author of The Unshakable Woman and From Hardened to Healed. Her podcast, From Betrayal to Breakthrough, is also globally ranked within the top 1.5% of podcasts. Her recent PhD study on how we experience betrayal made 3 groundbreaking discoveries that changes how long it takes to heal. In addition to being on Fox, CBS, The Dr. Oz Show, TEDx twice and more, she's an award-winning speaker and coach dedicated to helping people move past their betrayals as well as any other blocks preventing them from the health, work, relationships, confidence and happiness. Welcome back, listeners, to the Resilience Mindset Podcast. Today I've got with me Dr. Debi Silber. How are you, Debi?
I'm great. Thank you. Looking forward to our conversation.
We've had a few technical issues, so we've swapped platforms and we'll see how we go today. That's the difference when we're in different hemispheres.
Mm-hmm.
If you hop onto the vlog, listeners, on Justine Martin Corporation, you'll see that I'm rugged up in my nice jumper and Dr. Debi is sitting there in a T-shirt. I'm very jealous.
It'll be our turn soon. Don't worry.
It will. It will. Okay, let's get into it. What does resilience mean to you?
You know, I think that resilience is bouncing back, restoring something to the way it was. And we need that for our everyday. You know, we are constantly experiencing things that challenge our how we handle our day to day. And it's our resilience that shows us our ability to just come back and bounce back and hopefully bounce back better.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So can you share with the listeners an adversity that you faced and bounced back from that you used your resilience to cope with?
Yeah, sure. Well, I run the PBT Betrayal Transformation Institute. So, you know, you don't run something like that unless you have an experience with betrayal. And that was my experience. So I had a painful experience with betrayal from my family, thought I did everything I needed to do to heal from that. And then a few years later, it happened again, this time my husband. So that was the deal breaker. Got him out of the house, looked at the 2 experiences, thinking what's similar to these 2? Me, of course, but what else? And realized, you know, boundaries were always getting crossed. I never took my own needs seriously. So I decided to make a big change. And here I was, you know, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business. And I said, you know, I'm going back for a PhD. And it was in transpersonal psychology because I was changing so much. I didn't quite understand it. He was too, wasn't ready to look at that. I mean, I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. I didn't know how I was going to manage the time, but I knew something big had to change. And then it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal. You know, what holds us back, what helps us heal, and what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive. And that study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my family, my work, my life. So in answer to your question, and I'm happy to share what the discoveries are, you can't go making discoveries like that and go back to business as usual, go back to what you were doing. So that transformation was so huge and the insights were so huge that we opened the PBT Institute and now we're grateful to help many others.
Wow, that's amazing. So how did you draw on your strength? How did you do that? Because to go and write a book is one thing, to go back to a little bit of counseling is another thing, but to go and do a PhD, and I'm presuming that it was, you know, later in life, it wasn't, you know, when you're in your 20s, so to speak.
No, I went back at 50.
Well, there you go. So how did you draw on your resilience to cope? How did you do it?
Yeah. I remember saying to myself, I have no idea how I'm going to heal from this, but if I do, I'm taking everybody with me. It almost didn't feel, this is going to sound so weird, but it didn't feel enough just to be able to heal and rebuild, my family. It was the injustice. I mean, I'm such a sensitive person, and like doing the right thing is so important to me, and integrity is my highest value. So it's like the only way to kind of right this wrong would be just to help as many people as possible. And that gave me strength.
That's amazing that it is. So what technique do you use to gain resilience?
Yeah. It's really, there are a few things. One is representing this work forces me to do the work. I remember a million years ago, I was a personal trainer and I didn't want to work out all the time, but knowing I had to face my clients, I did. And it's sort of the same thing. I mean, we have, our certified PBT coaches and practitioners. So many of them get certified because it forces them to do the work. It forces me to do the work. There's something about knowing, you have people to show up for, whether it's your family, your clients, whatever. It's like, it's this little boost of incentive. So that's a big part of it. And I didn't want to be the poster child for betrayal. I mean, you get your story when you've been betrayed, but when you move through it, and happy to share how to do that, what you get is so much better. And if people had a clue what's waiting for them on the other end of their experience, they would never stay stuck.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about how then.
Yeah.
How do you move
so Yeah, well, the first thing is, there were the 3 discoveries, and this way it'll be some context. The first one was, I had a feeling betrayal was a different type of trauma than, let's say, death of a loved one, disease, natural disaster. I had been through death of a loved one, I'd been through disease, but betrayal felt different. I didn't want to assume it was the same for everybody else. I asked them, if you've been through other traumas, does betrayal feel different? And unanimously, they said, oh my gosh, it feels so different. And here's why. Because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the entire self gets shattered. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. Like when you lose someone you love, you grieve, you're sad, you mourn the loss. You don't question your ability to trust. You don't question the whole relationship. You don't question your sanity. With betrayal, you do. So that type of healing needed its own name, which is now called post-betrayal transformation, the complete and total rebuild of your life and yourself. So after an experience with betrayal. So that betrayal is a different type of trauma. That was the first of the 3 discoveries. Want me to get into the second?
Yeah, let's do the second. You've got me intrigued now.
Sure. Yeah. So the second was that there's actually a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. It's known as post-betrayal syndrome. We've had, 95,000 or so people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. And first of all, we've all been taught time heals all wounds. I have the proof that when it comes to betrayal, that's not true. There's a question on the quiz that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust. My betrayal happened 10 years ago. Feels like it happened yesterday. So we know that when it comes to betrayal, you cannot count on time. You can't even count on a new relationship to heal it. Healing must be intentional and deliberate.
The worst thing that you can do is go into a new relationship thinking that you have healed and you've done nothing about it, because you're just only a can of worms in with you.
That's it. And every few months I pull the stats from the quiz to see where people are. I mean, happy to share them if you want to hear them.
Yeah, sure.
Because it'd be really awkward if you said no. All right. So now imagine thousands of people, just about every country's represented. 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant. 94% deal with painful triggers. And if you've had a trigger, you know how painful they are. The most common physical symptoms: 71% have low energy, 68% have sleep issues, 47% have weight changes. So maybe in the beginning, you can't hold food down. Later on, you're emotionally eating. 45% have digestive issues, and that could be anything: Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, you name it. The most common mental symptoms: 78% are overwhelmed, 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief, 68% can't focus, 64% are in shock, 62% can't concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate, you have a gut issue, you're exhausted, you have to feed your kids, like you have to work. That's not even emotional. The emotional issues: 88% experience extreme sadness, 83% are very angry. I mean, you just bounce back and forth between those two all day long. 80% have anxiety, 79% are stressed, just a few more. Here's why I wrote the book Trust again. 84% have an inability to trust. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they were afraid of being hurt again. 82% find it hard to move forward, and 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how.
Wow. Sure, I fit in there somewhere.
Well, you know what's even crazier about those stats? You didn't hear me say one thing, 20%, 30%. These numbers are super high. They're also, this is the craziest part, they're also not necessarily from a recent betrayal. This could be from the parent who did something awful when you were a kid. This could be from that boyfriend or girlfriend who broke your heart in high school. So think about this. That person may not know, care, remember. They may not even be alive. And here we are today with these symptoms because of something that happened decades ago. I mean, the good news is you can heal from all of it, which was the third discovery.
Wow. That's amazing. Amazing work that you're doing, Dr. Debi, on all of that. And we'll put all the links into the show notes. So if anyone is interested in connecting with you, they definitely can and have a chat and follow you. So who are your role models in resilience?
You know, it's the members of the PBT Institute. I see these people coming in with the most horrific betrayals, and then they've been gaslit. They were, you know, whatever, or just with such like covert narcissists or whatever it is, and that they untangle themselves because, you know, if you're in that web, you think it's you. And that's the dynamic. It only works if you believe it's you. And when they understand that it had nothing to do with them, it's not about them, they were just a perfect target, or, you know, whatever it is that they've just overcome, so they realize their value, their worth. And really, I didn't get to the third discovery, but when they're able to completely move through their experience, which is what the third discovery was all about, I mean, there's nothing more exciting, you know, to see, because that's when we'll see new levels of health. That's when we'll see new relationships with the person who hurt them at a very different level, or with someone completely new. We'll see new businesses. It's entirely common when someone moves through their experience to see things like that.
Wow. It's nearly like being reborn, isn't it?
Well, you know, you leave behind, betrayal really lends itself to a completely new identity. You take everything you love, you leave behind everything that no longer serves, and you create a version of you that never would have had the opportunity to show up had the experience not happened. That's trauma well served.
Yeah, that's powerful. What are your passions in life?
Getting this message out about the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough, which is that was the third discovery, to as many people as possible, because it can shorten your experience by decades. So to know, like, let's say, you know, you're a parent and you're raising your kids. If your parents see that you could barely get out of bed, or you're just, you know, experiencing repeat betrayals, because that's a classic sign of an unhealed betrayal, and you're stuck, and that's when illnesses come, and that's when more of the same shows up, you're not doing a service to you, to your family, to the greater good. So knowing that it's really, there's a roadmap, and if you just are willing to move through those 5 stages, you will create a version of you that is has so much more impact and is so much better for you and everyone in your care and reach.
So I was going to ask, how do you deal with setbacks? But how you deal with setbacks is to go back to university and change.
Everybody, that was the hardest thing ever. But there actually, this is what was so interesting too. I remember graduation day, and I get an email from a gentleman, and he says, "Oh, we're going to be graduating together." Oh, that's great. And he's like, "Remind me of your name. I'm 78." I'm like, 78 years old and graduating with me. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. So from that moment on, hearing, I said, I'll never say I'm too old. Yeah, but
you're never too old to learn. And that's something that, you know, I teach my clients, and we've spoken about on the podcast before, is, you know, fuel your mind, continue to learn new things, expand those horizons. And the brain is a muscle, and it needs to be exercised, and by stimulating it with new things, reading, doing courses, new hobby, something like that, to stimulate that mind into it. My grandparents were in their 90s, and neither of them had dementia. And my nana used to attribute it to, she did the crossword every day and kept her mind active. So yeah, if you've got a burning passion to go back to university and study something, do it. Change your life that way. I'm learning the drums at the moment.
Oh wow, that's great. Yeah, but it's when you feel that calling, and it can absolutely change your life. And then the lesson is learned, because like in my case, when I did that was the first time I did something for me, and anything to that level, but it changed everything.
Yeah.
And it was because I was willing to do something so completely different.
And it's being brave enough to do it.
You know, I don't know, whatever it was just, there was just like, I was just on a mission. I don't even I don't remember. And I remember seeing, it was I was watching my kids, and they saw me crash, but I was like, if you're going to see me crash, you're going to see me rise. You're going to learn a tremendous amount from this experience.
They're always watching.
They are.
Yeah. So how do you cope with pressure?
I mean, I'm a big believer, be honest, do the best you can. And pressure is always a sign of growth.
Yeah.
If you're not feeling that pressure, and you're just kind of going through your day, and day after day after day, nothing's changing. And if nothing changes, nothing changes. So I don't necessarily think pressure is a bad thing. But if it's self-imposed, I would take a look at the reason why you're putting so much pressure on yourself. If it's because you're feeling so driven to do something so wonderful, great. If you're feeling you need to do it because you're feeling less than unworthy and deserving, check that. Because the fuel you're using to drive that behavior, it's not sustainable or healthy.
So what do you do to practice self-care?
I have a really important morning routine. I meditate, I work out, I take my time. I'd rather get up early and have that time than rush. That's not where I'm at my best. And spending time with my family, spending time with my friends. We always have at least a few dogs. That's self-care for me. I mean,
what breed of dogs do you have?
Well, we had 6 at one time, and then 5 passed. We have 3 because we've gotten a few since. But at this moment, we just lost a Havanese 2 weeks ago. So now we have a golden doodle and a chocolate lab and an English cream lab.
Wow, I've got a little mini sausage dog.
That's my grand dog. Is one of those.
Yeah, I've got 2 grand dogs as well that are those. But yeah, Pansy's my world. She is, and I have frogs.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, big giant Australian green tree frogs is what I've got.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I love my frogs, but they don't really like to cuddle like Pansy. The Pansy does. So. What's your favorite movie that features a person's inner strength to get back up?
Oh, wow. You know, I don't know about a movie, but the first thing that came to mind is just the hero's journey. And that's really what someone goes through when they move through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. That was, again, that third discovery that, you know, while people stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, if they're going to fully heal, they will move through these 5 stages. The order doesn't change. You don't leave it out. You will move through these 5 stages. And I'm happy to share them if you want, but it's that hero's journey. It's that version of that person who's just, you know, skipping along and then have the realization of their life and they completely crash. And then they're just so determined to just not only move through it, but use the opportunity to transform.
What are the 5 stages?
They're all in trust again. It's all we do within the PBT Institute. Here's a broken down version. So stage 1 is before it happens. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, what I saw with every study participant, me too, was a heavy lean on the physical and the mental and kind of neglecting or ignoring the emotional and the spiritual, the feeling and being. So if a table has only 2 legs, it's easy for that table to topple over. That's us. Stage 2, the scariest of all of the stages, shock, D-Day, discovery day. And this is the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. So right here, you've ignited the stress response. You're now headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. The mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You can't wrap your mind around what you just learned. This makes no sense. And your worldview has been shattered. Your worldview is how you view the world, your mental model. Trust this person, don't go there. You know, and in one earth-shattering moment, every rule you thought was real and true is no longer. The bottom is bottomed out and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. So it's terrifying. But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You grab hold of anything or anyone to stay safe and stay alive. And that's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this experience? Where do I go? But here's the trap. Stage 3, by far, is the most common place we get stuck. And I would venture to say the majority of your clients are in stage 3. Here's why. Once you've figured out how to survive your experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma of where we just came from, we're like, we think it's good. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5. Transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we park here. We plant roots here. We're not supposed to, but we don't know that. And 4 things happen. The first thing is we start getting all those small self benefits. Get your story. We love our story. We get to be right. We get sympathy from everyone we tell our story to. We get someone to blame. We don't have to learn to trust again, all of that. So we plant deeper roots. And now because we're here longer than we should be, the mind starts going to work thinking like, well, maybe you're not all that great. Maybe you deserved it. Maybe this, maybe that. So we plant deeper roots. And now because these are the thoughts you're thinking, well, this is the energy you're putting out. Like energy attracts like energy. So now you start calling situations and circumstances and relationships towards you to confirm this is exactly where you belong. The misery loves company crowd, they find you now. That lame support group that keeps you stuck, you find that group. And you will actually, many people will sabotage their healing because now they've found their people. And they're very comfortable. It gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but we don't know there's anywhere else to go, right here, we resign ourselves. We're like, this stinks, but I have to get through my day. So we start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy, whatever, to numb, avoid
sex, all of those.
Exactly. And think about it. We do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. And I can see someone 20 years later and say, that numbing, that emotional eating you're doing, that drinking, whatever, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they would look at me like I'm crazy. And they would say, it happened 20 years ago. All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, total sense. People come to mind when you say that.
Oh, I know it, because this is where illness happens. And then what happens is we start managing symptoms. Like, remember how I said, let's say 45% of everyone betrayed has a gut issue. So you're going to go to the best gut expert. You're going to take something for your anxiety. You're going to want to deal with the excess weight. You're going to, and all of this, at the root of it, is this unhealed betrayal. And then you're so miserable and you're so unhappy. And then you find people who are just like you. And so now it's like, this is our world now, and it's like quicksand. It's awful. Anyway, Can I get you into stage 4 and 5? I don't want to leave anybody in stage 3.
So what is stage 4?
Yeah. So, and that's why I wrote From Hardened to Healed. Like, trust again brings you through all 5 stages, but people were hanging out in stage 3. So From Hardened to Healed is just for stage 3ers. You've been through the worst of it already. You owe it to yourself to move forward. Anyway, if you're willingness is a big word right here, willing to let go of the small self benefits, grieve, mourn the loss, bunch of things you need to do, you move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. Right there in that decision, you're turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but at least you stopped the damage you've been creating in stages 2 and stage 3. Stage 4 feels like, if you've ever moved to a new house, office, whatever, all your stuff isn't there. It's not quite cozy, but you're like, okay, we can do this. It feels like that. But what's so interesting is, think about it. If you were to move, you don't take everything with you. You don't take the things that represent who you're ready to be in this new space. And what I found was, if your friends weren't there for you, or that misery loves company crowd, you've outgrown them right here. There's one spot going from stage 3 to stage 4. And people ask me all the time, what the heck? I've had these friends 10, 20, 30 years. Is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. And if they don't rise, they don't come along. Mm-hmm. You're dealing with a new, different type of person you want to spend your time with. When you've settled into this space, you've made it cozy, you've made it mentally home, you move into the 5th most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal. Self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. You didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now you do. The mind is healing. You're making new rules. You're making new boundaries, based on the road you just traveled. And you have a new worldview based on everything you see so clearly now. And the 4 legs of the table, in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
Thank you for explaining that. I'm sure that's resonated with quite a few of the listeners out there. And like I said, we'll put all your details in the show notes so people can make contact with you. So tell me about the 3 most influential people in your life and how they've impacted you.
Yeah, I would say, hands down, by far, the people who've hurt me the most.
Yeah.
And it's you learn who you are, you learn who you're ready to become, you learn what you're no longer willing to tolerate. I mean, as wonderful as it is to learn from people who set just such a beautiful, loving example, I have to say, I've learned the most from the people who've hurt me the most.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. If you could go back to your 18-year-old former self, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself?
I've always been very naive, and I've always been very trusting. And, it is so easy to become so hardened when you've been betrayed, and especially if you've been betrayed more than once. And I've always lived by a simple rule, like, is it going to hurt someone? Don't do it. Like, period, end of story. And I assume everybody else has that same rule. And I'm always shocked and amazed that that's not the case. So the version of me back then, I guess I would say I wouldn't change that, but I would be just a little more cautious.
Mine would be,
or
don't
even just
marry him. Mine would be, don't marry him.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Moving right along on that one. What are 3 books that you recommend to my listeners, and why?
Yeah. I mean, I could easily say any of my 7 that I've written, but leaving those out, I would say that the book that absolutely changed my life, hands down, was Conversations with God, Neil Donald Walsh, book 1. Nothing ever made so much sense to me as that one. So I absolutely would recommend that. It's like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. That was a time in my life where something wasn't sitting right with me in my, just everything I had ever learned and studied and known. And being willing to open up to a whole new way of thinking, it just absolutely changed everything about me. So I'm so grateful for that. And I mean, there are millions of others, but that's the one that stands out.
What's one question you wish I'd asked you, and how would you have answered?
I don't know. I think you asked a lot of really good questions.
Thanks. We try. I've been doing this a little while now. All right, so we're going to do some quirky questions now. If you won $10 million tomorrow, what would you spend it on?
I love that question. I would really, I would just spend it on growing the PBT Institute. There's actually something we're working on that is too early to reveal, but it would be so helpful to have a nice chunk of money to add towards that project. And we have an amazing charity program within the PBT Institute where we choose a member of the month, and a portion of everybody's first month goes towards charity. The member of the month chooses to which charity those funds go, or we donate to scholarships. So I put a chunk towards that as well. And then I don't know, not sure what else.
Well, there's something for you to think about into the future onto your vision board then, isn't it? If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I mean, I'm bi-coastal right now. I go back and forth between New York and San Diego every few weeks, which is amazing. Probably spend more time in Maui.
Nice. I've never been to America, so that's definitely on my bucket list. This year I'm doing Bali and Ireland. So two extremes. Yeah, I've got some writing retreats that I'm doing. One next month, so I can't wait to go on that. And then one in November in Ireland. So I think it's cold here now. Wait till I get to Ireland. Lucky I've got some big coats with me. What was your favorite subject in school?
Favorite subject? Probably English. I just loved writing. Although I had a teacher who said that I don't write for, like, my writing is more conversational and not, like whatever the literary style that they wanted from me, which made it really hard to write a dissertation, I'll tell you.
It would. But it definitely would.
Yeah, we've gotten through that.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No.
Ah,
no.
We can
straight up pizza. I love pineapple, just not on pizza.
See, it's such an Australian thing to have pineapple on pizza. What's another one? Tea, coffee, hot chocolate, or wine?
Coffee.
How do you have your coffee?
100%. With almond milk creamer and stevia.
What's creamer?
It's not dairy. It's a non-dairy almond milk based, thicker type of almond milk.
All right, gotcha. What's another one? What's your favorite food?
My favorite food. You mentioned pizza. I haven't had pizza in a long time, but that sounds really, really good. I kind of like.
We all know what you're having for tea tonight, then, don't we?
Yeah, I love dessert too.
What's your favorite dessert?
I love something crunchy, like some people like a soft sort of pastry type thing. No, I love like scones, that are really dry and crunchy. Love that.
Yeah, I can't eat any of that food. So, I just watch people as they devour that. I can't eat any desserts, which is a bit of a bugger. But lucky I'm not a sweet tooth. I'm more a savory, but even so. Okay, so wrapping it up, where can my listeners find you online?
Oh, everything is at the PBT, as in post betrayal transformation, thepbtinstitute.com.
And that'll be in the show notes, folks. So I'd like to thank you, Dr. Debi, for being on the Resilience Mindset podcast today. I'm sure quite a lot of us, what you've spoken about, it has resonated.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And remember, listeners, until next time, you stay resilient.
Are you ready to be inspired? Get ready for the book that will touch your heart and ignite your spirit. Whispers of Resilience, Personal Stories of Living with MS is now available for purchase. Have you ever wanted to peek into the lives of individuals who have triumphed over adversity? Look no further. This highly anticipated anthology brings together a group of exceptionally talented authors, all living with multiple sclerosis, who share their personal journeys with unyielding honesty and vulnerability. At www.resiliencemindset.com.au, you can now secure your copy of this remarkable book that captures the essence of resilience, hope, and the power of the human spirit. Dive into the stories that will captivate your imagination and open your heart to the triumphs and challenges faced by these courageous individuals. With each turn of the page, you'll witness the unbreakable spirit of these authors, as they navigate the unpredictable terrain of MS. Their words will inspire you, uplift you, and remind you of the incredible strength that lies within. Visit www.resiliencemindset.com.au now and embark on a transformative journey through the pages of Whispers of Resilience. Get your copy today.
We hope you enjoyed the Resilience Mindset podcast. Remember to subscribe to the podcast to get your weekly fix listening to Resilience Queen Justine Martin. Follow Justine on social media at Resilience Mindset or log on to justinemartin.com.au. And until next time, remember, life doesn't get easier or more forgiving. We get stronger and more resilient.